Turning on TFG to the depiction of boxing as a risk versus reward.
Of course I was going to do the video.
Our person of the year
Quality.
is a man who's widely acknowledged to have, on behalf of his star client Floyd Mayweather, mastered that equation like no other manager in history. But our designation of Al Haymon as the year's most influential figure has little to do with his advice to last year's person of the year, Mayweather. It's about what he's doing with the other reported 130-plus fighters who now make up his clientele. If you have a sense 2014 was a year somewhat devoid of compelling top-level competition, you would not be off base. Light heavyweight champion Adonis Stevenson had opportunities to fight three fellow stars, Sergey Kovalev, Bernard Hopkins, and Jean Pascal. He avoided all three. Middleweight titleist Peter Quillen gave up a belt and a career-high purse to avoid a fight with Matt Coraba. Talented junior featherweight titleist Leo Santa Cruz fought a sparring partner on the undercard of Mayweather Maidana 2. Adrian Broner and Lucas Matisse, logical opponents for each other, fought lesser opponents on the same card. Danny Garcia fought a 140-pound opponent so underqualified, even the governing bodies that market his belts wouldn't dignify the enterprise by charging a sanctioning fee. Rising welterweight force Keith Thurman fought long-faded former lightweight Julio Diaz, then fought a 40-year-old non-entity. All these stars are advised by Al Haymon, and that's the proverbial tip of the iceberg. It would be great for boxing, great, if one brilliant entrepreneur managed an astonishing client list of 130-plus fighters with the consistent objective of making the most attractive and competitive fights available within reasonable limits to protect their health and business prospects. But that hasn't been Haymon's game. He's about avoidance of risky competition. His formula has worked for star client Floyd Mayweather for a variety of reasons, among them that Mayweather took the right perceived risks earlier on versus Genaro Hernandez and Oscar De La Hoya to get to where he is now. But the Mayweather approach is not the right approach for the overall enhancement of boxing. Boxing fans want to see great fights, without which it is difficult to earn an identity as a great fighter. It's widely reported that for the next 2 years, Haymon will provide talent for as many as 40 boxing telecasts on NBC Sports, Net, and NBC. This would normally be cause to rejoice for everyone in the business. But no one is rejoicing now, unless the philosophy changes and viewers get to see the best fighting the best. And based on what happened to Haymon's clients in 2014, that's the last thing we can expect. So for gathering together the largest concentration of boxing talent in the history of the sport, and then mostly shielding that talent from the kind of competition that would make him a hero to the boxing world, Al Haymon is the 2014 TFG Person of the Year.
I've been saying the same thing for close to a year now. It's a promoters, it's a fighters, and it's the manager's responsibility to provide the fans, us who pay for the Showtime subscriptions, the HBO, cable packages, buy the tickets, to provide us the best fights they can possibly provide us. I can understand if a fighter loses, then you fight a warm-up fight and you get back at it, but Al Haymon fighters don't fight Al Haymon fighters from what we're seeing now. I'm going to explain something that I call the tiers. You got top-tier Al Haymon fighters. You got the lower tier Al Haymon fighters. Those lower tier Al Haymon fighters are usually exciting fighters, but those lower tier Al Haymon fighters are put against the top tier Al Haymon fighters to provide a exciting fight, but basically the outcome is almost pretty much predetermined. So for example, here is my understanding on what happens. You'll have Oscar De La Hoya or Steven Espinoza, the head of Showtime Sports, ask for, well, can we get Amir Khan versus Robert Guerrero? Al Haymon will reply back, well, I'll give you Amir Khan versus Jose Zito Lopez. How about Amir Khan versus Adrian Broner? Amir Khan versus Devin Alexander. All right, we got to take it. You know? So, Al Haymon fighters are assets. I talked of something that I named in-house boxing, where you have Richard Schaefer, who was completely for it. Richard Schaefer publicly condemned Bob Arum as far as stating, you know, if I'm correct, I remember that he had no intentions on ever working with Top Rank ever again. So that automatically excluded Mayweather versus Pacquiao, Timothy Bradley versus any of those guys, you know, Marquez, all those guys, because they were focused on, my understanding, signing up a bunch of guys to fight their guys, all of them are their guys, and they decide when they want to give us big super fights. Now, they had a big 2013, but what we saw from that 2013 was, yes, we're getting these big fights, but they're all fighting each other to an extent, and that Manny Pacquiao, no matter, even if he got knocked out, whatever the case was, he was always looming over the head of Golden Boy Promotions and Floyd Mayweather. Now, what I say about that is the Cold War can't officially end until that fight happens. Then we can start talking about all those underling fights. We can't talk about Timothy Bradley versus Keith Thurman happening until at least Mayweather versus Pacquiao happening. You get what I'm saying? We can't talk about Ruslan Provodnikov, Danny Garcia, because how is Al Haymon and Top Rank and Banner Promotions or HBO going to come together for that fight? But then they can't come together for for the big fight. How can Monica Bradley, the manager of Timothy Bradley, and Timothy Bradley fights for HBO? She can't go over to Showtime. How you gonna make that fight? Monica Bradley will be a hero. It's the reason why there's so much speculation, so much negative speculation about Al Haymon is because he don't do no interviews. He doesn't come out and set the record straight. Sam Watson does his best to set the record straight, but everybody's his friend. So he's like, oh, he's my friend. I was just with him yesterday. Yeah, we were talking about the fight. Oh, he wanted to fight real bad. Oh yeah, he's my best friend. That's it seems like every video will be about that. It's like, okay, well, what are you gonna what do you expect? But from what we've seen from the fights that have been offered to us, it's like, well, as Jim Lampley pointed out, we get Lucas Matisse, who can fight at 147 if he feels, and Keith Thurman on the same card. You get Adrian Broner, and who else was on that card? Oh, Adrian Broner and Lucas Matisse on the same card in that one, and we know that Adrian Broner had called out Matisse. You get Amir Khan, Adrian Broner on the same card. You get Danny Garcia and Lamont Peterson on the same card. 2 champions in the same division. You get Adonis Stevenson doing what he did. 3 fights, that was right there. Jean Pascal was right there. Sergey Kovalev was right there. Hopkins was right there. He goes and fights Fanfara and then Sakatsky. And now probably Fanfara too. Or somebody that's not Pascal, Sergey, or Hopkins. To where now the WBC is like, man, fuck you. You're going to fight. We sick of you jumping and dodging around. You're going to fight one of these guys. Or we're going to take your belt. So you got Peter Quillen, which is the biggest, the biggest smack in the face to boxing fans and a boxer or kids that their dream is to be a world champion boxer. Peter Quillen walks away from 1.4 plus, nearly $1.5 million, and drops a world title that's not even now in American hands anymore. It probably will never be an American, well, I'm not saying never. We probably won't have another American champion for, God knows how long. That's what happens. They get the belt, they take it back to their country, fight their best guys. There's nothing wrong with it. You got Andy Lee who's got that belt, and then Matvey Korobov had it, was, number 1 contender. Then Andy Lee, now he might be fighting Billy Joe Saunders. So you think, well, what belt is Peter Quillen going to get? The WBA regular, not a WBA world, because Golovkin has that one, or that IBF that Jermaine Taylor has. So you ask yourself, well, where can he make $1.4 million? Now, I know there's the dirty end of the stick as far as the business, whereas you'll get somebody to say, well, drop that belt, and drop the title. And drop that money situation. I'll give you like $500,000 right now. And then, we're going to put you in some fights where you can make some money, some easy fights. I understand how that part of the business works. But when you got Danny Garcia and Adrian Broner who are friends, they're fighting in the same division, or even if they're 147, they can fight in the same division because Broner's walking around lower heavy right now. You got Lamont Peterson and Adrian Broner joking around on Instagram saying that they may fight, and we know that they're friends. You got Anthony and Andre Durrell in the locker room with Adonis Stevenson. Adonis Stevenson is a former 168-pound fighter, and Andre and Anthony can fight at 175. They're in his locker room supporting him. So you think, how can there be genuine beef there? But of course we may get Adrian Broner versus a John Molina, though. Seriously, those are the type of fights, that we'll get. Look at Abner Maris. Abner Maris has been on a comeback trail for now, 3 fights, I believe it's been? And as soon as he signed with Al Haymon, the whole Johnny Gonzalez situation was out the window. People wonder why Haymon fighters don't fight on HBO. Haymon was doing the same thing he's been doing with Showtime, Steven Espinoza, and Golden Boy Promotions, to where if you look at the fights that was being offered to us, there was always a better fight out there. But if you look at the Alfredo Angulo and the Andre Berto situation, they was being built up to where they were taking fights that they should have been taking on ESPN on HBO. You know, to a point where you get Andre Berto beats Victor Ortiz and basically gets exposed. You got to remember, Andre Berto was the shit back then, you know, and then he gets exposed. So looking now that Al Haymon has his fighters set up for world titles, you know, if you look at heavyweight, you got Antonio Tarver, who wants a shot. You got maybe David Hay. You know, we still don't know if Al Haymon's signing David Hay or what's going on with that. We got Deontay Wilder getting his title shot. You know, of course, Adonis Stevenson, light heavyweight. Who's at 168? Anthony Durrell. You know, then he got the brothers set up for a title shot and somebody else. You know, you look at 160, he got Daniel Jacobs, Peter Quillen, Jermaine Taylor. You got Jamel Charlo, who may fight at 160, most likely moving up, or his brother, I forgot. You know, you got Jamel and Jamal Charlo at 154. You got Austin Trout. You know, you got Venus Martirosyan. You know, you go to 147, and it's like, oh, the 147 and the 140-pound fighters that he has, he can put on super fights for weeks. But will he do it? Now, he's going to network television. Network television, NBC. See, here's the thing. You want to, when it comes to NBC, they don't want boring fights. They're going to want fights that when people turn, they're seeing violence the best way they can portray violence without breaking any national television, you know, guidelines. So what I'm saying is this. If you put a Danny Garcia and a Rod Salka on NBC, it's going to draw somewhat good ratings. Why? It's because you're going to have people flicking through the channels like, oh, boxing, let me see what this is. And you never watched boxing a day before in your life. You see Danny Garcia, some guy knocking out some guys. You're like, oh, shit, people get knocked out on this network. But to us, the fans who follow the sport, you know, we're being robbed because those people are not, you know, it's like it's those quick ratings. You know, that's the way it looks to me. It's like, let me get these ratings, you know, for these new Showtime subscribers. So all them people that subscribe for Mayweather in those big fights in 2013, now they've already been caught and they're seeing these fights where fighters get knocked out, but they don't really know, you know, the names of these guys so much. So I guess what I'm saying is that the matchmaking is geared toward, from what it looks to me, is building, you know, boxing fans off of knockouts and action. To whereas in you can have the knockouts and action of fights that we want to see, but why not if you can have them fighting pretty much nobody and getting good ratings? Danny Garcia versus Rod Salka got good ratings. Rod Salka is somewhat some type of cult star now. So, I'm hungry. I hope the camera hear that. My stomach just growled. But when I think about, do I feel confident that, okay, here's a scenario. If there was a poll, if there was an ESPN poll that said, yes, Al Haymon's good for boxing, no, Al Haymon's good for boxing. Which one, you know, and it doesn't help that we don't get any interviews from the guy. It doesn't help that we don't get no press releases. It doesn't help that he doesn't get at no press conferences, you know, get up there on the mic and say, you know, like, and with him in boxing, our goal is to provide the biggest fights. And, you know, we just don't know. We just get saying, he's my friend. Oh, yeah, I was just with him and T.I. and Lil Wayne, and it was me and Peter Quillen. Joey's my friend, my best friend. You know, it's just like, and then me watching all of those fights, I barely get a Saturday off between HBO fights and Showtime fights, and I'm watching this shit, these entire cards. And I'm like, okay, all right, these are good fights, but yo, he can be fighting him, he can be fighting him. Like, HBO was not just saying that shit because they mad. It's true. Al Haymon right now, he has the reputation of he's destroying boxing. He's got the best guys not fighting the best, to the point where even Showtime, how long do you think, now this is if you've been following it, how long do you think that Steven Espinoza is going to keep his job? Like, really, how long, like we're putting out this Showtime losing money on Mayweather, they had that big, you know, ratings, and the numbers were going up 2013 and then 2014, you know. And then you're getting this bad press and media too. You know, anytime you hear about Bob Arum with another network going to the guy way at the top. And like, look, don't you see what's going on with your network? You don't you see that on Showtime? You got these bullshit fights going on. You know, it's some crazy shit going on in the world of boxing right now. And it's like, are fans seeing this? And the more we keep condoning it, like, you know, yeah, well, as long as the brothers get paid, Jack. Oh, that job that the promoters used to do before was robbing the boxes. Look, that paid. You know, and I'm thinking, like, Al Haymon is somewhat a hero in the black community. I believe I said that earlier. You know, because you'll have, you know, and I've seen it. I be watching some fights with my homies. This is before when I used to, like, you know, like do YouTube, not, you know, as much as I did now. And I be telling the story. They be like, yeah, but so what? I don't care. I hope he knocked that bum out. I'm glad my nigga getting paid. And I'm thinking to myself, like this is why boxing is fucked up, because you condone it. We've been condoning Floyd Mayweather fighting, you know, the people that we haven't been wanting to fight because he's making so much money. It's like, yeah, he can make $30-40 million fighting nobody. That's balls. He's hustling us. That's hustling. That's just like, you know, doing a little fucking 3-cut trick with the bowling, which was the bowling. Like, ha. But he already know that you're not going to get it. You know, but I'm going to spend too much time talking about this. I just look at it like this. Listen, I'm a boxing fan. A huge boxing fan. And I know how to combat this because, see, I know a lot about Mr. Al Haymon, but it's like, that's not me. I don't want to be no, you know, God dishing people dirt and all that. Yeah, I will do it. But it's just like, how long am I going to keep putting up with this? How long am I going to keep putting up with these type of fights? How long am I going to keep putting up with knowing that fans are being manipulated? Knowing that, well, we got to watch it because, you know, we boxing fans that we put up with the shit. Adonis Stevenson shouldn't have been fighting on Sahusky. Dude had the fucking old school stick. It was like, what was this? He was way, and his leg was way out here, so his leg was way the fuck out here. Like, I'm like, what is this? What is this shit? Did you ever watch one of those fights? Like, for example, Deontay Wilder versus Malik Scott. I'm watching, like, what is this shit? I'm looking like, what is this shit? Like, when he hit him, and then Malik Scott went down, he just was looking like, I'm like, what is, you know, like sometimes, like, I'll be watching something like fucked up happen, and I just get stuck. You know, like when the dude Cave got robbed, I forgot his name, Tyson Cave, I think it was, on ESPN, I just was stuck. I'm looking like not processing, like, it's some fucked up shit just happening, and then I think like, oh shit, like what the fuck just happened? Boxing is brainwashing us, man. It's brainwashing us. I'm T Street Controversy. This is T Street Controversy Live. Subscribe.